A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome inside One Giant Step. A merry March to you all. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. Thank you as always for joining us, whether you're free on the Audacy App or anywhere you get your podcast. This is nitty-gritty time. We've made it. I cannot believe we're a month removed from the Super Bowl, 2 months removed from our last Giants game. We are chugging along, and this Giant roster is about to take shape and have a much different feel as free agency is set to begin, and the Combine has wrapped up. Bryce, first, before we get into the rumor mill and everything, what's your feel? Don't even mention any names right now. Are you more nervous, more excited, more interested? What's the young Bryce Gelman feel about the Giants as we head to free agency?
Like I'm optimistic, but at the same time, like I'm ready for any disappointment. Anything that's underwhelming that happens, I'm prepared for it. At the same time, the Giants have some holes to address, some holes to fill. Hopefully they can fill them. If they fill them, great. We're in a good spot, but if they don't, then I'm ready for whatever happens at this point.
Yeah, I want to tackle the Giants quarterback issue because clearly, that is what has kept any Giants content running, is the fact that this is a rarity with a team, like, quite frankly, doesn't have a literal quarterback ready to play. But I will say this, I'm very interested in the approach that Joe Schoen takes in free agency, because very clearly they have cap space to spend. He's talked about it. He has said in the past he won't just spend like a drunken sailor, but the idea of like smart moves. They have holes they got to fill. So I am very clear whether I shouldn't say that. I'm very interested to see what the fine line is, because there is going to be a fine line, whether you are nonsensically ruining this team down the line, unless you are doing the old make cap space this way, follow the Eagle trend, kick money down the line. That was something he originally didn't want to do 3-4 years ago, but the league seemingly has changed. Can he thread that needle between, also the team needs players. They have holes. You have to supplement, because no matter what you do in the draft, you need starters on this team at certain positions. So can he thread the needle between, okay, we all agree as fans, this is what needs to be done, compared to, oh my God, Joe Schoen is just in job saving mode. You know what I mean? Because I think people are going to overreact one way or another to any move with that thought.
Yeah, they have to thread the needle here with what John Mara said at the end of the year, essentially applying on this organization to make moves. We both know that they're not necessarily in a position to make any big moves to improve enough to get to the point where John Mara could be satisfied. So we don't know exactly where that the fine line is for success in John Mara's eyes. That is another thing that you got to look for as a Giants fan, is like, are they going to do enough to improve to get to the point where John Mara is okay with keeping them at the end of the year?
The current time on our clock as we are recording this, in me and Bryce Gelman's current world, depending on when you're listening, is 10:09 a.m. on Wednesday, March the 5th. Okay? I say that because it's important depending on when you hit click play on this. This could happen very quick. This could be very dragged out. Bryce, let's just talk about the Giants quarterback situation ahead of free agency. Obviously, they lost out on Matt Stafford. You and I debated that for a while. We come to find out through Rich Eisen and Albert Breer, the Giants did get to the money, and dare we say the draft compensation, which starts to scare me a little bit, because we both agree no way first round pick. But when I hear that, I wonder, wait, did they actually do that? Was that actually crazy? Which just shows you they looked at Matt Stafford at, I think this kind of proves something I said on the show to be right, as their golden parachute. Oh my God, we never thought this kind of quarterback would become available. It didn't work out. Okay, that sucks. I wanted him. You didn't want him. That's fine. But as they pivot here, there are rumors aplenty, man, about the Giants trading up to the first overall pick. And the stuff around it seems to be Cam Ward, not Shedeur Sanders, which is fine. Again, I see flaws with both. I see upside with both. I think clearly we probably all who watch college football would agree Cam Ward's QB1. I don't think it's, drastically by a mile like everybody else thinks, but that's whatever. The point is, this is in play. And why is this important now? I think that it would behoove the Giants and the Titans, while everybody assumes, you wait up until draft night, the last possible moment the Titans could try to get the most out of it. I understand all of that. We haven't even had pro days. But Bryce, as the league has changed, and we saw this with the Panther-Bear trade, if you are teams like the Titans and Giants, both in search of quarterback upgrades and everything, it makes sense to get a deal done before free agency because it changes your entire approach. So as we sit here on Wednesday morning, would it stun me if the Giants are in fact going to trade up to number 1, that they get it done before Monday? And for the Titans, I think it would make sense as well. Because ultimately, if you don't find a dance partner and you're the Titans and you get to draft night, you're probably going to feel more inclined to take a Cam Ward at number 1 overall if you haven't done what you think you needed to do in free agency.
Yeah.
Now, we know the Giants, Bryce, are going to sign a veteran no matter what. And that's why we did how many different podcasts on the different veterans that are available. And everything from the Aaron Rodgers rumors, which broke when you were in London, Russell Wilson. There's rumors today the Steelers are really looking to bring back Justin Fields. Jameis Winston's been bounding back. Go on and on and on. Hopefully not Sam Darnold, but he's now he's a free agent. Have the tag.
You're out on Darnold now.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a 1-year deal, I'm very much out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The more I've thought about it, I don't want to be. It reminds me too much of the Daniel Jones deal. If you trade up to number 1, I think it does change things, man, because you'll know. Okay, we trade up to 1 with a purpose. We control the draft. We're taking Cam Ward, and maybe you're less inclined to spend, I don't know, $20 million on Russell Wilson, and you're more apt to go spend $2.5 million on Jameis Winston. I not that anybody wants that. I'm just saying like that it does help you there. And if you're the Titans, if you're out on drafting a quarterback and saying, you know what, we have more time than the Giants do, we're going to get some picks here. We're still going to get the player we want at 3. Maybe they're in a rush to go sign Sam Darnold. Maybe they're in a rush to go sign Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that happens as well. I think before any team spends a single dollar at quarterback on free agency, you'd like to know where you stand in the draft and if you control that or not.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's going to change their approach that much because they do know at the end of the day they need a veteran quarterback on the roster. I guess money-wise it could, but I think that the Giants have a general idea of what they're going to do in the draft, whether it be at the number 1 overall pick, whether it be at 3, whether it be at the 34th pick. They're going to take a quarterback. Obviously, it depends who that guy is.
But not if they're not, not if the quarterbacks go 1-2 and you're at 3.
Yeah, I mean, well, then you end
That's
up.
That's my point. You need to know what you're doing.
And you end up picking the quarterback. You might have to trade back into the first round to get Jackson Dart. I'm just saying, maybe they take a flyer on Kyle McCord in the 3rd or 4th round. Like, they're going to end up with a rookie quarterback. We just don't know who that quarterback is. So I do understand your point about wanting to go out there and making the move now. I feel like I don't know.
And especially, hold on. Before you finish, the other part of doing this is whatever the compensation is too. There have been rumors that, and if you look at the point system on that website, like what it takes to go to 3-1, technically speaking, the Titans can say no. Points wise, the Giants' current 2nd round pick, which is 34th overall, and 3rd round pick, is enough points to move up the 2 spots in the draft.
I think that is the worst possible move this franchise could ever make.
Well,
seriously,
hold on.
Ever.
Time out. I don't want to give up the 2nd round pick. I would try to hopefully find a way. However, if that means I'm not giving up next year's 1st round pick, and that is the only comp, I mean, if you're asking me what would I rather have, I'd rather have next year's 1st round pick than this year's 2 and 3. But I say that to say before you continue, Bryce, if that's the trade you have to make because you really want the rookie and you're giving up your 2nd and 3rd, well, what does that mean for free agency? This is what I'm talking about. You need to know, hey, I'm not going to get the defensive tackle I want in round 2, or I'm not going to get the cornerback I want in round 2 or 3. That changes your entire free agency approach. You don't want to spend what you're going to spend, then get past free agency, then ultimately have to get to 2 and 3 to get to the quarterback you want, and then going, oh my God, we didn't fill this hole, and you have a gaping hole in this roster next year.
Shaun, this is my question, though. Is the value behind that number 1 overall pick really more right before the draft than it is right now? Because I feel like if the Giants are the only team serious about trading up to number 1 and the Titans are in a spot, I'm just saying, in this hypothetical, the Titans are not 100% sold on Cam Ward. They like Abdul Carter. They like Travis Hunter. And they're content with moving down to 3. Do you really think that right now would be the time to go out and make this move, considering the value that is attached to that number 1 overall pick? Because in a month and a half, the Titans might be a little bit more convicted in what they are going to do at number 1. They may decide, hey, we're not totally sold on Cam Ward. Right now, I think they have no idea what they're going to do. It all depends on what another team wants to do. I think they're content with moving down to 3 because they haven't been totally locked in to the number 1 overall pick being Cam Ward, like we saw last year with the Bears and Caleb Williams. I understand they're two completely different prospects, but are we really sure that before the draft?
What do you mean?
Great for him?
Well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean you think, wait a minute, the Titans may watch the pro day and everything and then go, you know what, we're totally out on Cam Ward, but we're going to sit here and take Abdul Carter? Is that what you think is going to happen?
And anything is a possibility. But if the Titans aren't completely sold on Cam Ward going into the draft, I feel like they may be inclined to take as little as possible in order for someone to move up so they don't waste the number 1 overall pick. Let's say the Giants, again, in this hypothetical, the Giants are the one team that are really interested in moving up to number 1. And also with the number 3 pick, I think that they've got increased ammunition. Unless another team like the Jets want to move up from 7 to 1 and trade their first round pick next year, including this, like, we don't know. What I'm saying, though, is the idea that the compensation that they give up could potentially be a little bit less if the Titans become desperate to trade down to 3 right before the draft. It's like ticket sales. I know this is completely different, but it's kind of a good analogy. If you want to go to a game, let's say, there's not much demand and you really want to go to the game, you wait to the last second. You buy those tickets right before the game. You don't buy them a month and a half before because that's when the value is at its highest. I know it's not a perfect analogy, but it does hold true if there isn't a lot of interest to move up to number 1.
All right. In the perfect fairy tale world you paint, sure, that's great. But it's an enormous gamble for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're right. The Titans could look at it and go, man, there's not as heavy interest as we thought. Maybe there's not a great pro day from Cam Ward or something. Or flip side, free agency passes, certain teams that had certain ideas at a veteran coach. Let's just bring up the Raiders and Jets sitting at 6 and 7 right now. They could become more desperate to trade up. And then the Titans could be looking at this going, well, hold on. Yeah, I can get your 2nd round and 3rd round pick and only slide back to 3 and get the player I want. But man, this Jet team is aggressive for Cam Ward. They're going to give me their next 2 years first. I think I'd rather have that. You could have the flip around. Now, I'm not saying that will happen, but that is a gamble you take. And I just think it would behoove both teams because if the Titans move on, they could wipe their hands clean and go, you know what? We'll like a 2-year deal for Sam Darnold here.
Shaun, there's another thing working on the Giants side. There's a definitive top 5 in this draft. Like, I think we can all agree there's a drop off after number 5. That's like Mason Graham, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Ward. I guess now Shedeur Sanders. He's being mocked outside of the top 10.
Yeah, I would say there's a for sure top 3. Hunter, Carter, and Ward.
I think Mason Graham is a generational talent. I think he's
stop using that word, please. I'm so tired of generational talent. I'm so tired of working around the word generational talent. I've had it with the word generational talent. You don't need to use it. Don't fall into the Tommy Lugauer traps, please.
Oh, don't compare me to him. I mean,
what do you mean? Oh, hold on now. Don't make me be mediator.
I'm not doing that. Come on.
You get on your knees and you beg for a Tommy Lugauer career right now, Bryce Gelman. And you got the potential.
By 30.
Don't say you don't want to be compared to him. He's had a nice little career here. What are you talking about?
He's not realistic enough. He's got one side. He's got 4 different personalities. How about you stick to the realism of sports? How about you just go on the air and give your honest opinion? How about you do that?
The sick part about Tommy, knowing him as well as I do, is he does believe this stuff.
Oh, that's another story. That's a different story.
Jeez. Shaun. All right, am I gonna have to broker something between you two? I mean, what is going on?
Let's get him on. Let's get all that positivity on this podcast. Let's see how that goes.
I mean, the last thing anybody needs is more me and Lugauer together. That's all.
That is a good point.
And he was a former co-host here on One Giant Step. Now, okay, so I mean, look, we agree to disagree. I don't even think we fully disagree. I just think we're going through all the variables. I think there's a chance that this trade gets done. I think that's the way the NFL is structured with the free agency. All I know is it would suck. It would suck to go through what you're going to do in free agency and then get to that panic point on draft night and you're giving up that draft capital. Now, I would still do it if you really believe in the quarterback because you never remember, just the same thing with Eli Manning. You never remember those picks you gave up. You don't remember that Nate Kading and Sean Merriman went to the Chargers and all. You never remember that if the quarterback hits. But for the Giants and as many holes as they have, being able to literally know what they have to work with in the draft before free agency, I think is enormous for this team. And it all goes back to, winning that Colts game. Because had they just lost the Colts game.
And I got clowned for that. I seriously got clowned for that. Well, I was extremely upset about that win.
Because you can't get mad at the coach and the team
I wasn't. I was just mad in general as a fan. Like, I'm just pissed they won the game. I think I was completely within the right of being upset that they won the game.
Now, what do the Giants do here in free agency? I think this is very important, Bryce. I give the Chicago Bears a lot of credit. For anybody that maybe hasn't seen it yet, on Wednesday morning they traded, what was it, a 4th-round pick for Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, 4-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
Which, not for nothing, I look at that draft compensation. This is another part of what I'm talking about. The Giants cannot trade any draft picks until they figure out what they're doing at quarterback and trading up in the draft. Because you know what? Had we known there's no shot of them trading up, the Titans close the door, make a trade with somebody else, maybe the Giants should have been more apt to go, Joe Thuney for a 4th-round pick, that's worth it for the New York Football Giants. So that sucks. Like right away, the Giants are behind the 8 ball. That's a move they could have done, right? Jonah Jackson has gotten traded as well to the Bears. Why do I bring up the Bears in this? The Bears are doing something smart. I'm not saying it's going to work out. I don't even know truly how I feel. My lean is, I don't know how I trust Caleb Williams. I don't even trust Ben Johnson. But just because I don't trust him doesn't mean that's not going to be a magical pair that doesn't work out. I've been wrong before. What the Bears are doing is what the Giants did a year or two too late for Daniel Jones. They are leaving, no doubt. They are putting together an offensive line. They already have a receiving core. They took Rome Odunze in the 1st round last year. They're going to let Keenan Allen walk fine. They signed DJ Moore long-term, a little overrated, but nonetheless. They are giving a quarterback multiple weapons and putting the best possible resources into an offensive line so that when all is said and done, after year 2 and then year 3 of Caleb Williams, before they think about that 5th-year option and / extension, they will know. They will have left no doubt with an organization. We have an offensive-minded head coach. We have an offensive line we put together. We have wide receivers we put together. We will know what Caleb Williams is before we know whether we need to pull the ripcord. Because what the Giants did with Daniel Jones is a classic example of how to screw up a young quarterback. And further proof, what happened to him later on. Maybe he was shell-shocked. Maybe not. Maybe he always would have sucked. But we kept saying, we didn't get a number 1 wide receiver until 6th year. Okay, we already have that in Chicago. He didn't truly have an offensive line that you felt comfortable with, except for the first 6 games of 2024 when they had Illuminor and Runyon added to Andrew Thomas before he got hurt there. The Giants waited too long to solve those problems. So, if the Giants are going to trade up to 1st overall with Cam Ward, or maybe they take Shedeur Sanders at 3rd overall and never have to move up or anything, if that is what happens to the New York Giants, what needs to happen in this free agency, another offensive lineman needs to be added because if Greg Van Roten is gone, look, John Michael Schmidt's jury's still out, big year 3, but if they found a great center in free agency, I wouldn't be opposed to making John Michael Schmidt's a depth piece. Andrew Thomas, get a swing tackle in here. Josh Azudu, the moment Andrew Thomas gets hurt, can't be starting games at left tackle. Okay, I'm fine with Illuminor at right tackle and Thomas at left tackle. If you find a right tackle and want to move Illuminor into that guard spot and use his versatility, I'm fine with that too. The Giants need to make sure if they're taking this pick, they have a number 1 wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. Figure out what they're going to do with that other spot, Wandell in the slot. Don't have this quarterback start behind the 8 ball where a million of us are asking the question, well, what would he look like with an O-line? What would he look like with a receiver? I don't want to have those damn questions.
And it also means the Giants have to freaking try Evan Neal at right guard. They have to just try it once.
Well, not if you sign a free agent guard, you don't. Then he's just a depth piece and the hell with
it. It's malpractice. The fact that they have not tested him out at guard.
I would play him. Look, I would play him in camp at guard this year. I'm just saying I'm not handing him a starting right guard spot.
It's asinine that we have not seen it yet. Like,
okay, all right, hold on.
Digged in when it comes to playing him at guard.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I'm so angry.
No, you're being passionate. Don't apologize. I just want to know if we're on the same page or not. Are you saying play him at guard and make him the starting right guard now, or just in camp make him the right guard? Like, I'm not letting
test it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
But I'm not letting Evan Neal. I'm not letting the potential or unpotential Evan Neal stop me from spending mega money at guard.
You increase the depth, and then if he works out at guard, which I think he would, then look at that. Then you've got the depth. Plus, you've got your starting right guard going forward. It's a win-win.
Okay. I also think the other part of this, so now we all agree at least one offensive line spot needs to be added, although I like the direction of the line. I do. I like what they did last year. I think they hit home runs with Illuminor. I liked Runyon. The other part of this is the defense. It's no surprise here. The Giants need a number 1 corner. And that doesn't mean you have to go get a guy as good as Sauce Gardner, because those guys, and by the way, jury out on him. Those guys barely exist. Like, for example, Jets corner DJ Reed is available in free agency. I don't view him as like a lockdown, shutdown corner, but I need somebody that's capable of playing that outside position at a high enough level where we don't feel like Deonte Banks is playing number one receivers all day. I said this week in and week out last year. If Deonte Banks at pick 22, 23, wherever he got picked, ends up ultimately in this league being just a solid number 2 corner, that doesn't, especially where he's picked in this league where you need corners, that doesn't make him a bust. It might be disappointing that he didn't become a number 1 corner, but it doesn't make it a terrible pick because you need quality number 2 corners, and those guys in this league in the 20s in the first round, that's fine. I know we're all down on him, but that's fine. But the only way that works is if you figure out who your number 1 corner is. And with all due respect to any rookie coming, round 2, 3, if they have those picks and they don't trade up to number 1 with those, I can't trust that guy right out the gate to be a number 1 corner in this league. So we'll see what happens here, but I need a corner that is going to leave me excited about the move up. Because look, Drew Phillips, I wouldn't move him from the nickel. Maybe they do, and they view him as a physical outside corner. Maybe.
But don't fix it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could have one of the best nickel corners in football. And if you have Deonte Banks turn into, you know what? All right, that's not a bad number 2 corner. And you find that number 1 corner. Well, now you're cooking in the secondary because I do expect Tyler Newman to take another step leadership-wise at safety. What are they going to do at the other safety position? I don't think you need to go spend big money on free agency there because honestly, it would probably piss me off a little because why didn't you just do that with Xavier McKinney or Julian Love in the previous year? So I'm not expecting that. But if I have the corners to work with and Newman's my number 1 safety, I'm fine with whatever you guys do at the other safety position. But that needs to be cleaned up. Linebacker-wise, if they add some depth there to go with McFadden and Okereke, great. But if those are my 2 starters, again, I'm fine with that.
Shaun,
defensive tackle's the other position.
Did you see the report today that multiple members of the Giants organization are not totally sold on Bobby Okereke? Did you see that?
I did not see that. Who reported that?
I don't know, but I saw this right before we went live about which I just think is shocking. Give me a second. I'm gonna find this right now. Pat Leonard.
Oh. Look, I love Pat.
That some members of the Giants brass do not have a high opinion of linebacker and captain Bobby Okereke's value to the roster entering the 2025 NFL season, and they'd save $3.5 million in cap. They got rid of him. 3.5. 3.5.
All right, look.
Sorry to get you off topic there, but I didn't know if you saw that because I just think
I don't want to be insulting because there's a couple things I agree with. Pat Leonard's been a guest on this podcast, and I get along with him well. And I think that on beats in this town in New York, or just in general, I think you need a lot of good cop, bad cop stuff. I think it helps. I don't think it's helpful to a fan base to constantly have fluff pieces. So just hear me out. This is my long way of doing this. So when you look at that, Pat Leonard has become the guy that ruffles feathers and slants extremely negative. Not, and look, the Giants deserve negative, but he slants extremely negative. He is the guy that's asking Brian Daboll about his job security after week 2, paints himself in a corner, and then is left going, oh my God, he didn't get fired or whatever. That's Pat's angle. I don't think he does a terrible job, but I do question some of what Pat seemingly always hears the most negative stuff from the most negative people, whoever his sources are. Is it possible that after 1 year, Shane Bowen or whoever on his staff, I don't know, Okereke had a down year, and Pat Leonard emphasizes that into we're questioning the future of Bobby Okereke, take that step? Yes, because by the way, Okereke wasn't as good as he was in year 1 as he was in year 2. So I just want to quote, when somebody hears that, sure, it wouldn't shock me if anybody in the Giants defense is down on the year Okereke had, then it becomes, oh boy. Now, Pat, now I'm calling you Pat. Bryce, you just mentioned $3.5 million the Giants could save. Whoop-de-doo. The Giants have like $65 million in cap space to play with.
It's nothing.
You know what I mean? So what is $3.5 million? And then here's the other thing. I just listed cornerback, safety. I was getting into D tackle before you gave me that nugget. Giants want to create another hole?
Yeah. Add linebacker.
So save $3.5 million and then find a guy in free agency as good as Bobby Okereke and tell me how much that guy's costing. Just do simple math.
Yeah.
Just do simple math.
You're losing $10 million plus. Just
come on. It ends up being a net negative.
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't, and I don't think there were times last year I questioned whether Okereke was playing great. I don't think he had a great year last year. He was much better in year one. But overall, the value of Bobby Okereke and the contract they got him on compared to what replacing him would look like with the other holes, man, it doesn't add up for me, Bryce. It doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, I mean,
I would be disappointed. If this is a surprise cut, I would be disappointed in the Giants. And also, what would it say about Joe Schoen? That's one of the guys he should be taking bows with on free agency.
Exactly. Also,
he's not going to cut the one win he has in the pocket.
Listen, Bobby Okereke's play last year as compared to the year before, I can understand. The season was over by week 10, week 11, and you kind of saw a drop-off from that defense, specifically Dexter Lawrence, who was the best player in football the first 9 weeks of the season. All of a sudden, the Giants season's over. You kind of see a half-assed effort, and I think that translated to a guy like Bobby Okereke. Even as a captain of the team, the team was completely done, and they'd given up at that point. So I don't think it's fair to judge him based off those games in which the Giants' season, again, was essentially over. Listen, this is my thing with the beat reporters, the beat writers. If it's true, report it. If it's not, don't try to bend the truth. Like I get the need for clicks. I get the need for increasing your company's revenue. But come on, what are we doing here? Like how much can people realistically trust you if what you're putting out there isn't 100% truthful? And it's hard to believe that all the stuff that's put out there, and again, the Giants have some great beat writers. It's hard to believe that all the stuff they put out there is true.
Right. I agree. I don't know, man. This quote is pissing me off. I'm reading this right now in real time. It's pissing me off because I kind of think I nailed it. Okereke didn't have a great year last year. That becomes Pat turning into this rumblings this offseason. Yeah, they thought they expected more of him. That doesn't mean cut him and save $3.5 million. I'm pissed now, Bryce.
So
can we just have a happy free agency moment? All right, look. Now this is an important programming update. Next week, particularly the early part of next week, is going to be effing crazy. All right? This is the important reminder that I know gets ran into a wall and you guys get sick of me saying. You do want to download and subscribe to this podcast, okay? Because as it stands right now, there is potential in rumblings the Giants could trade up to the number 1 overall pick. Does it happen? Who knows? But if it does happen, and it happens this weekend, Bryce and I are going to have to drop a pod to react to it, okay? So you're going to want to be there, and you'll get that little alert on your phone. Beyond that, if it doesn't happen, the legal tampering period starts Monday. Free agency starts Wednesday. And this is an important reminder to every Giant fan, every NFL fan, because we get confused by this every year.
Yeah.
When legal tampering starts, we immediately start hearing guys have agreed to deals.
Yeah.
They don't put pen to paper until Wednesday. But for instance, Saquon of the Eagles broke when legal tampering started, basically 10 minutes into the point we said, well, when did they really tamper? The tampering has already begun. Just remind yourself that. So when we say free agency begins Wednesday, it really begins Monday. Yeah. Okay? Kind of like when does Christmas begin? Really on Thanksgiving. All right? So if and when the Giants make their first big splash, by the way, veteran quarterback is going to be one of those splashes. Bryce and I will come together and find a time. Does that mean 2 pods early next week? Hey, one reacting to whatever the first big move is, another one reacting to the rest of the moves? Maybe. There could be even a 3rd pod later in the week if Bryce needs to jump on here because I'm going to be in freaking St. Thomas starting on Thursday next week. So you could have anywhere from 1 podcast to 3 podcasts available next week alone on One Giant Step. Okay, that is our plea to the listeners. Just understand that. So if you're, you guys are going to wait till, no. We're going to try to do this the best we can. It's a busy, busy week, and this is why you listeners are important. So download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. Again, we don't know how many we're going to have to pump out here. This could be a crazy week. This could be a nothing week where we're disappointed all you get is 1 pod. You will get that alert if you download and subscribe. Okay? Bryce, we're in lockstep there?
Absolutely.
At Bryce Gelman on Twitter. At Shaun Morash on Twitter. All right. Breathe a sigh of relief. Pat Leonard reports are flying in. Giants reports are flying in. Can we just get some good football? Thank you, everybody, for taking One Giant Step with us, and let's go Rangers.